Good morning and good evening to all my fellow Indians around the world. Depending upon what time zones you all are watching this fantastic campaign on Rebuild India, a
Good morning
24-hour
and good
non-stop
evening to all my fellow Indians.
24-hour non-stop social media campaign. Thanks to Tasveer Salim, CEO of SkillMap, who is the chief organizer of this mega event. And thanks to Johnny Joseph, managing director of SkillMap, and John, business director of SkillMap, for helping Salim to organize this event. And overall, thanks to entire family of SkillMap, because they have taken this great initiative to give energy to all the fellow Indians around the globe to re-emphasize that rebuilding India is needed right now, and it can be done. Before I begin, I would like to make sure you and your families are staying safe and healthy in these unprecedented times. This is your own Swamy Sri Parambadur, industry leader and business strategist, currently working as CIO of Informatica and board of director of MapRecruit, and also holds several other board positions. I have been working extensively in the global, dynamic, and changing markets and industries, and having served in multiple leadership roles since 1997. No doubt, these are the extraordinary difficult times, not only for India, but all the world. People are gripped with fear of disease and death from COVID 19. This fear is ubiquitous and transcends geography, religion, and class. The inability of nations to control the spread of the novel coronavirus and the lack of confirmed cure for the disease have amplified people's concerns. Such a heightened sense of anxiety among people can cause tremendous upheavals in the functioning of societies. Consequently, disruption of the normal social order will inevitably impact livelihoods and the larger economy. The economic impact of COVID 19 has been much discussed by all seasoned economists around the world, and they all are saying only one thing, that the global economy will experience one of its worst years in the history. And of course, India is no exception to that, and it cannot buck the trend. While estimates vary, it is very clear that for the first time in many decades, India's economy will shrink significantly. If you're following the market reports or in the news channels and the papers, you probably will see the main headlines saying the Indian economy posted its worst quarterly contraction between April and June, slumping by almost a quarter as a strict nationwide lockdown to curtail the spread of the coronavirus brought the country to a virtual halt. I mean, imagine those periods. It was a good decision that we need to really curtail the coronavirus, but then it was a standstill. Virtually everybody was staying at home. And of course, that has a direct impact on our GDP, which has shrunk almost to 23.9% in the second quarter compared to from the previous year. And it is a biggest decline on record. And this decline was the worst among major economies, and even it surpassed a fall of 20% posted by our neighboring country like United Kingdom. The economy pain was felt across all industries and services, with agricultural being the only one sector to grow, albeit at a slower pace. Private consumption, the main driver of the economy, fell nearly 27% on the year. And of course, the investment collapsed 47%. I know I'm just giving some of the numbers which I captured. Just want to give you the magnitude of the impact of our own Indian economy. And if you think about all the economics, what they say is this is only a fraction of the amount what they are saying, because we are not able to capture the full amount of the data. The reason, there are many other businesses which are not on record. For example, what we call is informal sector, right? So the informal sector, which accounts almost for the 50% of the total output and employs more than 80% of the workforce. And who are those people? Those are the labor, contract labor, which do not have any the formal way of hiring people, or there is no formal documentation. So it is really not documented. So as you might have seen, there are many people from the rural India will always go to major cities across India to work on this. But then there is no paperwork. So it is kind of an undocumented way, but those people are huge in number. And almost, I would say, it is 80% of the workforce. And if you look at it, the overall coronavirus numbers, India has been almost averaging 60,000 to 70,000 daily new infections. And if you look at it in the global map, right now, of course, where I am from, United States, it is still leading with the more than 7 million, but India secured a second place with more than 6 million cases. The good thing is, if you look at it, the per 1 million population, the overall people per million population, because of our 1.3 billion population, the number is better. But if you look at it, it is still very, very high. And sad moment to know that we have more than 6 million people got affected. And the another thing is the uncertainty around the pandemic. It is directly impacting the economy, and it has created almost by number, I believe, more than 20 million people lost their jobs because of the lockdown or whatever the thing. And it was not me quoting; it was given by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. And that was, again, this information is from August. And now we are in almost October, right? So we don't know how many more jobs have been lost. And while this ongoing pandemic is leading to sporadic shutdowns across the country, and the central government is unwilling to step up their fiscal policy support, we think India is now on a course for double-digit contraction this year. If you just verify some of the numbers, what the government is doing, right? The Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji announced almost, I think, 266 billion US dollars to do a stimulus package. And that was, I think, in May. But it hardly could increase the public spend or give any tax breaks, because there was no direct cash transfers. The underwhelming fiscal response to the crisis will guarantee a legacy of higher unemployment. And as you can see, it is every day the unemployment is rising. And of course, a lot of these small businesses are also closing. And all over, if you look at it, I think our entire GDP may still be 10% below what it has today, even when you go almost to the year 2022, if this trend is increasing. And if you look at it, the entire public health emergencies, such as this pandemic, they might have been dealt better when it has been given power to local authorities and the state governments, because when you are living in your own community, you really know more about your community, your state, so you can do. So it should have been happened that the central government might have given information to all the states, these are the guidelines, but because you know about your area, so you can actually go ahead and implement how many days you want the lockdown, how many days you want to maybe a curfew, how many days you want to open, or whether you want to open the businesses in a structured manner. I think that was missing. And it is if you look at it, when you are comparing, right, with a world war, even in the world war, we never saw a immediate shutdown in a synchronized fashion, whereas in this just the corona has really taken very high scale and high, where the entire world has been shut down in a synchronized manner, which was not the case in the world war. So it is very, very unfortunate to see India's economy, which was steadily becoming stronger since 1990. So if you look at it, since 1990, the things were really going up. And we almost reached one of the top 5 countries in the world with a good economy, with a financial, and it is also almost going from developing country to developed country. But with this, we completely kind of a hit back to the ground, saying, oh my God, what's going to happen? So when we are comparing the current economy, it's almost like a war-like economy. See, the kind of a virus, if you look at it from the diseases, it was only in 1920 we saw, and almost after 100 years we are seeing this. So I think maybe a 0.1% of us maybe experienced. Otherwise, entire world, it is a new experience which nobody wanted to experience, but that's where the fact is. So if we are comparing this like a war like economy, and if you want to learn from our past crisis, so what are the things? So let us look at it, right? Because I want to position here, talk about the current situation, then talk about the lessons, what we can learn from war like economy, and then how can we implement to rebuild. So that's the plan which I want to cover. So if you think about lessons from past crisis, I think there are basically 3 themes emerge when we look at it. How successful government responses to previous crisis. Again, this is from a different data, but it is at a world class level. And this could be either because of the war, or it could be environmental issue, or it could be epidemics, because this is all what we can say is act of God, because nothing is in our hands. So when these kind of things happen, what are the 3 things we focus on? First, the government has to prioritize the lessons. What we are seeing is prioritize human welfare and human capital, because people are our assets. We have to first to focus on the people. And what are the second thing? Because crises tend to accelerate pre-existing economic trends, the government responses that are effective often take that into account and plan long-term policy accordingly. Because you cannot get everything quick, right? We have to have understand the current economic condition and then see how long you can plan it. And the third and most effective planning for longer term economic recovery usually starts early. You don't need to wait till it ends. You have to start now, thinking maybe sooner it will end. So these are the lessons. So in this, if you want to really focus on prioritize people, what they have done previously, the history says, it's not me saying, it is the history is saying. What is the history saying? Recovery always depends on protecting public health. It also depends on bolstering human capital, which can be done by helping individuals to retain employment. If they are not, then help them to acquire the new skills so that they can find the new jobs. Because as you can see, we are calling this as a new normal. It is not what it was there before. It is a new normal. So when a new normal, your skills are different. So you have to train. Then what government can do? Maybe as an example, government can announce some training to upskill, and it can partner with some of the fantastic educational institutions. Like in India, we always look up to IITs and IIMs. So maybe they can partner with some of the IITs and IIMs, and then put all the strategies and then see how these normal people can be upskilled with the different skills or technologies or the areas to deal with the new normal. And then we need to understand the existing trends. People who are economically vulnerable before a crisis are often most negatively affected. So if you have a more underprivileged or the poor people are already there before the crisis, they will be more go deeper into poverty lines because of this. And this is not I'm saying, this is again a research done by the McKinsey. They found out the percentage is at least 5 to 10% more for the people who are under poverty line to have impact after the COVID compared to the normal citizens. So then how can we take care of those things? So you already know this is the crisis. So what is the stimulus packages, or what is the cash we can directly give it to the people who are under poverty? So that would be a easy to, I mean, this is again, history is telling what we can do. The other thing is create adaptive and a long-term solutions, because if you create and then people are not adopting, then it is also not a problem. So people have to create which can be adopted, but then it also has a long-term solution. I mean, we all know that when something falls down to come up, it takes time, but you need to make sure you are in the right direction and right trajectory and the right production so that it will be helpful. So recovery from a deep crisis can be uneven, and history always suggests that leaders may want to place their policies over several years. It cannot be like 6 months policy. So you have to create a policy which can be expanded for next 3 years, next 4 years, next 5 years. I think there was Rojgari Morg, I think some packages were there in the policies in the Indian government. So you need to see how it can be done. I mean, because I can give you one example. As I'm in the US, we had this attack, 9/11, right? Then when there was an attack, and New York City is directly got hit in 9/11. And it took a long time for the people or the tourists to attract to New York and then increase the New York economy. It took a long time, and almost in 2011 it happened. Sorry, 2001 it happened, and it came all the way up to 2008. There was an increase, but then literally it was more stabilized in 2015. So it took so long to convert from these attacks. So this is what we have to do. So based on these learnings, how can we work in this COVID-19? What would be our economy recovery? So what we can do? So as we know, every crisis is different. We need to think in this crisis how our policymakers can create the warlike economy, the past approaches, and compare here, and then create a long-term resilient process so that it can help. And more important is we need to make sure how it is with our talent, capabilities, and infrastructure needed for the long-term resilience. That is the critical. And then we have to make sure how are we helping people, right? People are the most important for any nation and more for our India. So in this much economic responses to date has focused on providing a short-term relief such as maintaining employment for citizens, easing critical expenses, because there could be maybe as simple as giving them the food packets, which will be sufficient. So we need to make sure there is an employment, or there would be a ease of critical expenses and providing businesses. So in US, what we have seen, there was a stimulus package given to all the people. It was, I think, $3,400 or so for the small businesses. There was also programs created for the small businesses to take care of their payroll. There was also packages created that you don't need to pay for your bank interest or mortgages. So there were, every person came running saying that okay, we will be part of the bigger relief fund, and then how we can help. So we need to look at it saying that how can we create a talent pool for the innovation, right? So we need to kind of take care of some of the supplementing federal relief efforts. In recent weeks, economies throughout the world have begun to reopen, right? So their leaders have quickly realized, like in each country, they have realized and said that, okay, some of the businesses we will do because we want to focus more on the public safety and how these things will be working. And what are the things we need to do, like, pre-existing trends into recovery planning? Like, as economies restart, leaders are also considering ways to restore the GDP, employment, consumption, and other aspects of aggregate demands. The labor and consumption trends that were in motion going into the crisis, as well as long-term trends related to inclusive growth, all factor into potential solutions. In the early days of COVID-19, some of the policies some countries have taken, like, they focused on targeted venture capital backed companies, right? So they went into some of the investors, provide useful examples for policymakers thinking that, okay, I have invested in this area, so how we can do. So there is some venture capitals, and policymakers have to work and see what we can work on. And we also have to see how we can do a transformed economy. So there is always a pressures on policymakers to focus on the short term, because we have to come out of it. But if you don't understand the next normal and then play a long term with the government leaders, it is a problem. And one of the critical factor everybody has to focus is all about the innovation. So if you look at it, technological innovation is a fundamental driver of economic growth and human progress. Unfortunately, it is often underappreciated, because when you are doing a disruption, people not appreciating the result and how it is going to impact the economy, how the human is going to evolve or transform, they always look at the other side of it. Oh, it is creating a disruption, it is creating some problem. You look at the positive side, how it is impacting the economic growth. Say, for example, when you are doing this in the pandemic, you all are staying home, but you are all are trying to order food. How this food is happening? Many people in rural India, they don't know about internet, or they don't know how to order. But if you look at it from the lockdown period, or from the corona period of March till this October, there is a tremendous transformation happened. All the people, or many people, what I've seen, they are just going into apps, like a big basket, and then they're applying, and then they are able to get the food. So the important aspect is embrace the technology, use it for your advantage. So that means we really need to focus on how we can build smart supply chains, because if when you look at it, the overall global, what is impacting, all the prices in some areas are really high, because the entire supply chain has collapsed. We do not have any smart supply chain, we do not have any smart logistics. How can we use this technology and the innovation? And if you look at it, India is one of the very few country who has highest population of younger generation. And as you can see, even at the global footprint, a lot of these young leaders or young generation is becoming a transformational leaders for the bigger companies, and they are using the technology and the innovation to disrupt the entire industry for greater good. So the government has to support these kind of the innovators and the technologists, and we all need to form a team of the industry experts, technology experts, policymakers, economists, financial planners, and seeing how we all can come up with a cohesive plan and embrace this younger generation who have a very innovative ideas to take this country and the economy into greater good. So I strongly suggest that we, as industry leaders, have to work with the policymakers and make this a kind of a policy that this there is a stimulus package available for the young entrepreneurs to take this into the next level. And of course, our first and foremost policy should be to take care of the livelihoods of all the people and then protect them. So we need to work towards working on identifying either the medication or the vaccine or both for the corona. So that is our primary. But in term, we need to create this long-term policy to create the stimulus package. And if we needed to borrow more money, we need to do that, because it is the time to invest for the greater perspective, for the healthcare, and for the betterment of the people. Because if the people are not happy and healthy, we cannot transform this country. So we have to focus. And then predominantly, as we have seen, even in our history of many millions years ago, everywhere in this, India is being always a rich country. With some of the other unprecedented events, it is going down, but then it is always coming back and rebouncing back. So it has its strength, and more than before, it has more strengths now with this greater younger generation and the technology advancement and the innovation. We just need to make sure we have a particular recipe with a proper portion of all these people, and create only with one common goal of how can we rebuild India, transform India, not just for 2030, but it is beyond, so that it can really regenerate. And of course, we also want to make sure one of the policy changes, what I believe, is we need to make sure institutional autonomy, because that will help all the financial institutions to see which and who they want to give the loans, or whether they can create a policy. And then innovation can also come to embrace, because there are a lot of the robotic process automations and other things are happening to increase. And most of the time, the innovation or the automation or the technology, people are always thinking that it is only going to replace me. But what I'm saying is, if I am Swamy, I need to have a digital Swamy, so that we all are working. So this is a combination which is actually solving the bigger problems. And you as a person, human being, cannot be replaced by a brain, cannot be replaced by a bot, because your brain is so powerful and so unique only to you. And this will help you to redesign whatever is you are passionate about, to transform this country. Whereas the other one, this is a digital bot which will be helping you to do all this automation the way what you wanted. So this Swamy plus digital Swamy will help you to prosper this country in a better way. In a nutshell, I would like to close this statement saying that we can all do a rebuilding India for the greater good, with a cohesiveness, collaboration with all the people. And it should start with the communities where you live in, and it is has to go within the communities, to the states, to the central. Because do not depend that only the government will come and do. You all have to take part as a citizen of India, and think about it, how you can contribute. It could be a smaller portion, it could be a bigger portion, depending upon your capacity, your capabilities. You should be able to take this drive to make sure we all become Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, one nation, irrespective of the caste, creed, religion. And then we all need to work towards reforming these policies, and embrace the innovation, use the technology, and rebuild and retransform India. And we all can do. And again, I really thank the Skill Map team, and especially the Sphere, for being with me and giving me this opportunity to speak about transforming, rebuilding India for greater good. And this Skill Map is doing a fantastic job. So I appreciate and thank all the people who are involved with Skill Map, and making this a fantastic 24-hour non-stop social campaign for rebuilt India. So every citizen of India, you should take this opportunity to transform and be part of this, because you are not an alien. You are an Indian. You should be part of this group, irrespective of wherever you are living across the globe. Try to see how you can best be part of this rebuilt India for greater good. Thank you once again. Enjoy. Have a good day, good night, depending upon wherever the times you are watching this. And Jai Hind, Jai Bharat Mata, salute to Mother India. Thank you all. I really appreciate for the opportunity.